My name is Russell Carnaby. 78 years ago, I was born in this very town of Castleton, and it seems that this is where I will end up. Although the exact timing, as I have recently discovered, is something my only daughter Hazel would very much like to determine. Castleton has never been a big town, a medium-sized industrial center, sandwiched between woods and a narrow river, with the typical fate of such places, booming in the 50s and 60s, slowly fading by the late 90s, and a sluggish existence these days. Nothing remarkable. Dozens of such towns are scattered around the country, but this place has always been special to me. It's where I founded Carnaby Industrial Systems 43 years ago. It's where I've lived all my life with my Eleanor. It's where I raised Hazel. It's a chilly Tuesday morning. I'm sitting in my office on the third floor of our office building, looking out over the city through a wide window, a panorama I've been observing daily for over 4 decades. The factory is located on a small hill, and from here I can clearly see both the old part of town with brick houses and the new neighborhoods with identical cottages. The view may not be the most picturesque, but it's my view, my town, my company. The walls of the office are hung with photos and certificates. The industrial equipment we manufacture isn't exciting or revolutionary. Specialized hydraulic systems for the food industry sounds boring, even to me. But it's an honest business that feeds 300 families in Castleton and just as many more in branches around the country. I run my hand over the polished surface of the oak table. Eleanor gave it to me for the 20th anniversary of the company's founding. "You deserve to have a desk as thorough as yourself," she said then, laughing her melodious laugh. 5 years ago, cancer took her from me. For 5 long years, I wake up in an empty bed, talking to her pictures and feeling this heavy, pressing emptiness inside. My musings are interrupted by a knock on the door. 3 short knocks, Hazel's signature style. "Come in," I say, straightening up in my chair and adopting a more businesslike demeanor. My daughter appears in the doorway, 46 years old, impeccably styled brown hair, strict suit, a look on her face that I've long since forgotten how to read. She looks more like her mother, the same graceful figure, the same expressive eyes. But the character, well, sometimes I think her stubbornness and calculating nature is my karma. "Good morning, Father," she says in a tone that others might take for caring. But I can hear that note of impatience in it, a note that began years ago and has only grown stronger since. "How are you feeling today?" "Fine," I answer, and it's almost true. My heart has been bothering me for a few years now. First it was just interruptions, then shortness of breath when climbing stairs. Then I was diagnosed with heart failure. Not a verdict, but a serious warning. Pills, restrictions, regular visits to Dr. Sheldon, the usual companions of old age. "Did you take your meds?" Hazel walks further into the office holding a file folder. "Of course," I nod. "I'm not out of my mind to forget these things." "No one's saying you're out of your mind," she wrinkles her nose slightly. "It's just that you can be distracted. Distracted. That's the word she used last week when she was trying to explain to the board why my opinion on the new production line should be disregarded. "Dad's been a little distracted lately," she said then with that fake caring daughter smile of hers. It was only thanks to the support of Evan Thornberry, my deputy, that I managed to defend my position. Hazel has been with the company for 20 years. Started at the bottom as I insisted. Gradually rose to CFO, a position she's held for the last 8 years. She's competent. You can't take that away from her. But there is something about her approach to business that has always made me wary. There's a coldness, a calculating nature that sometimes crosses the line. "I have the quarterly reports for you," she says, putting the folder on the table. "I think we should discuss cutting back on the research department. Their latest developments aren't generating the expected profits." "Research is the heart of the company," I reply, not even opening the folder. "We're not cutting it. It's irrational, Father. Times have changed. We need to be more flexible." "We've discussed this, Hazel. My decision is final. I can see the irritation on her face, but she quickly pulls herself together. Instead of arguing, she changes tactics. How was your visit with Dr. Sheldon yesterday? He didn't call me with the results. Should he have? I raise an eyebrow questioningly. I'm just worried about you, she shrugs. At your age, your health requires constant attention. At your age. Another one of her favorite phrases, as if my 78 years automatically makes me incapacitated. Dr. Sheldon said it's within normal limits, I replied. Although he did prescribe some extra pills. He says they'll help with my blood pressure. Great, Hazel answers too quickly. I'll stop by the pharmacy and get them tonight. No need, I say. I can handle it. You're always so stubborn, she sighs with feigned weariness. Why not just let me help? Because I'm not sure of your motives, I want to reply. But instead I just say, it's good for me to take a walk to the pharmacy. Dr. Sheldon recommends moving more. Hazel looks at me with that appraising gaze of hers as if deciding whether to insist. Then she nods. Whatever you say. But if you need help, call me. I'm always in touch. After she leaves, I lean back in my chair and stare at the family photo on the wall. It was taken about 20 years ago. Eleanor, me, and Hazel against the lake, all smiling. It all seemed so simple then. When did it all go wrong? I know for a fact that it didn't start yesterday. Maybe the first sign started when Eleanor was alive. She was always a buffer between me and my daughter, smoothing over our conflicts, finding compromises. After she died, our relationship with Hazel became frankly strained. First, it was the little things. Hazel started showing up late to weekly family dinners or skipping them altogether. Then came the disagreements in the company. She increasingly challenged my decisions, sometimes behind my back. And last year came that memorable scandal when I learned that she had been secretly negotiating with our competitors about a possible merger. It would be good for the company, she assured me then, but I knew that in the event of a merger, she would have significantly more power than she has now. I catch myself stroking the left side of my chest. There, under my shirt and skin, my old heart is working harder and harder. The doctors say that with the right treatment, I could live many more years, but I can see in Hazel's eyes that she thinks otherwise. Yesterday, before I went into Dr. Sheldon's office, I overheard their conversation. Not the whole thing, just a snippet. We have to be realistic, doctor, Hazel said. At his age and with his diagnosis, perhaps it's time to consider more intensive treatment. What did that more intensive treatment mean? And why is she discussing this with my doctor behind my back? My musings are interrupted by a phone call. It's Evan, my deputy, with questions about the new contract. I spend the next 2 hours immersed in my work, pushing my anxious thoughts to the back of my mind. By evening, I feel more tired than usual. I return home, a big house, too big for a lonely old man. After Eleanor's death, I considered moving to something smaller, but never decided. There are too many memories associated with these walls. Hazel arrives around 7, as promised, with a bag from the drugstore. I stopped by after all, she says. I thought you might want to take it easy. I thank her, though I'm growing irritated inside. Another little demonstration that she thinks I'm incapable of taking care of myself. We eat dinner in oppressive silence. Hazel tries to maintain polite conversation, talking about her son Benjamin, who is attending college on the other side of the country. I nod and ask the right questions, but my thoughts are far away. After dinner, she pulls an orange jar of pills out of her bag. Here's your new medication, she says. Dr. Sheldon said to take one in the morning and one at night with food. I take the jar, looking at the little white pills inside. They look different from the ones I've taken before, a little larger, with different labeling. Did Dr. Sheldon mention changing the medication? I ask in as neutral a tone as possible. Yes, Hazel replies quickly. He said it's a newer version, more effective. I nod, pretending to accept her explanation. Dr. Sheldon never said anything like that to me, but I don't show my doubts. Here, Hazel pours a glass of water and holds it out to me. Take the first dose now. I obediently put the pill in my mouth, drinking the water, but at the last moment I hold it under my tongue, not swallowing it. When Hazel turns away to put the dishes away, I discreetly remove the pill and slip it into my pocket. Thanks for your concern, I say. You're welcome, she replies with a smile that doesn't reach her eyes. I want you to be healthy for as long as possible. After she leaves, I sit in the silence of the living room for a long time. Dusk is thickening outside the window, the shadows from the trees growing longer, blacker. I take a pill out of my pocket and examine it carefully. What are you? And what is my daughter trying to do to me? The next morning, I wake up dizzy and nauseous. I'm so weak, I can barely get out of bed. That's strange because I didn't take my pill last night. But then I remember, there was also the tea Hazel insisted I drink before bed. It will help you sleep better, she said. Struggling to get to the bathroom, I look at my reflection in the mirror. Pale face, bags under my eyes, faded look. Do I really look that bad? Or is it the effect of something Hazel put in my tea? I lean against the sink, trying to collect my thoughts. Panicking won't help. I need to think clearly. If my suspicions are correct, and Hazel really is putting something in my medication or food, I need to be extra careful. The phone's ringing. It's Hazel. Good morning, Father. Her voice sounds cheerful. How are you feeling after the new medication? A little strange, I answer, choosing not to hide my condition. I'm a little dizzy. Oh, that's a normal reaction when you first start, she says quickly. Dr. Sheldon warned me there might be an adjustment period. Did you take your morning dose? Not yet, I say. I just woke up. Don't forget to take it. It's important, she says with insistence. I'll stop by after work to check on you. After the conversation, I sit down on the edge of the tub, feeling the room sway slightly before my eyes. Something is definitely wrong, and I need to find out what it is before it's too late. It's been a week since the night Hazel brought me the new pills. 7 days in which I pretended to take them, when in fact I threw each one down the toilet as soon as she left. 7 days during which I diligently feigned increasing weakness and disorientation, and watched my daughter's reaction. I started keeping a diary, an old-fashioned paper diary. Hazel never looks in my office at home, so the notebook in the safe behind the painting is the safest place for my entries. Day 1, I wrote a week ago, faked dizziness and weakness. Hazel looked worried but not surprised. Offered to call Dr. Sheldon, I declined. She insisted I not go to the office. She called twice to check on me to see how I was feeling. Delivered dinner, insisted I take my evening dose in her presence. I hid the pill behind my cheek, spit it out when she left for the kitchen. Poured the tea she'd made into the flour. Poor Drakina, I hope it survives. Each day the notes became more disturbing. I was not only recording my fake symptoms and Hazel's reaction, but real changes in my condition. Despite not taking the pills, my well-being was worsening. Weakness in the mornings, intermittent dizziness, rapid heartbeat. Today, Wednesday, I woke up to my own cough. A dry, racking cough. I've never had it before. When I was finally able to stop, there was a tiny drop of blood on the palm of my hand. The sight of it gave me a chill. It was one thing to suspect your daughter was trying to hasten your demise, and quite another to see physical proof. I had to realize what was going on, not just with my health, but with the company I'd built. Hazel, taking advantage of my deteriorating condition, was becoming more and more active. Evan Thornberry called me at home yesterday, concerned that she has called an unscheduled board meeting for next week. She says it's to discuss a temporary reassignment of power due to your illness, Evan said in his distinctive, slightly husky voice. But I thought you should know in advance. Evan had been with me for over 30 years. He started out as an engineer and worked his way up to deputy. If there's one person in this company I trust completely, it's him. Thank you, Evan, I said. I'll be at that meeting. Are you sure you can make it? Hazel says you've gotten really sick. I'll be there, I said firmly. And Evan. Don't tell her I know. He paused for a second before answering. Sure, Mr. Carnaby. Whatever you say. After that conversation, I made a decision. I was to go to the office today despite my real weakness and see what was going on in my company. But first I had to figure out exactly what Hazel was doing to me. I pulled a small plastic jar out of my nightstand where I put one pill from each dose Hazel gave me. I had 14 already, 2 for each day. I wrapped the jar in a handkerchief and put it in my jacket pocket. Then I called William Kinsley, an old friend of mine who had worked for 30 years for a pharmaceutical company before retiring 5 years ago. William, I need your help, I said when I heard his voice. It's a delicate matter. Anything for you, Russell, he replied. What's wrong? I'll tell you when I see you. Can you take me in today? Sure. Come by this afternoon. I got dressed trying to look my usual self. Navy blue suit, white shirt, pinstripe tie. I looked at myself in the mirror. Yes, I looked paler than usual, but not as bad as I'd been pretending for the last week. The key was to keep my back straight and not show weakness. The office met me with surprised looks. Betty, the secretary, almost dropped her coffee cup when she saw me at the door. Mr. Carnaby, we weren't expecting you today. Miss Woodfield said you were sick? I smiled. As you can see, Betty, the rumors of my illness are somewhat exaggerated. Is Hazel in? No, sir. She's in a meeting with Brock Industries. She should be back this afternoon. Brock Industries, our longtime competitors? What's Hazel doing in a meeting with them? As far as I remembered, we didn't have any joint projects. I see, I nodded. Tell her I'll stop by and come back later. I wasn't actually going to come back. I had other plans for the day, but I needed to make sure Hazel didn't find out my true itinerary. I went up to the 3rd floor, to my office. Everything was the same as usual. A neat desk, pictures on the walls, a view of Castleton from the window. Only on the desk was a new folder labeled Restructuring, Preliminary Plan. I opened it and ran my eyes over the first few pages. What I saw made me sit up. Hazel was planning a complete reorganization of the company. According to the documents, I was to remain the nominal president, but with no real authority. All management would go to her as CEO. Evan Thornberry would be transferred to another department, downgraded. Several key employees loyal to me were being laid off under the pretext of streamlining. And best of all, the plan mentioned a strategic partnership with Brock Industries, which in reality looked like a takeover of our company. With the brand intact, but with a complete change in management. I took a few pictures of the documents on my phone and put the folder back where it belonged. Then I called Evan and asked him to come over to my place. What's going on with Brock Industries? I asked when he appeared in the doorway. Evan grimaced. I've been meaning to talk to you about that. Hazel's been negotiating with them for the last 2 weeks. She says it's just to explore the market and the possibilities of cooperation. But you don't trust her, I finished for him. It's not a matter of trust, sir. It's just that these meetings, they're too secretive. And Bradley Brock came in person last Thursday. Bradley Brock, owner of Brock Industries, a longtime rival of mine, has never been one for small deals. If he was personally involved in the meeting, it must have been something big. What else had I missed this week? Evan was quiet for a moment, as if gathering his thoughts. Hazel had several meetings with key clients without your knowledge, told them that that your health had taken a serious turn for the worse, and she'd be their main point of contact. She also ordered an audit of all financial transactions for the last 5 years. Why? Officially, for tax preparation, but the auditors are digging deeper than usual. They're particularly interested in your personal financial arrangements. I leaned back in my chair, trying to make sense of what I'd heard. Hazel had acted quickly and decisively. She was preparing the ground not just for a temporary transition of power, but for my complete removal from the business, and possibly selling the company. "Thank you, Evan," I said. "Keep me posted. And please don't tell anyone I was here today." After he left, I sat in the office for a while longer, then went down the back stairs to avoid seeing any employees. In the parking lot, I got in my car and headed to William Kinsley's house. William lived in a cozy house on the outskirts of Castleton. His wife, Prudence, welcomed me with sincere joy, accompanied me to her husband's office and left us alone, having brought tea and cookies. "Now," said William when we were alone, "what is this delicate matter that is troubling you?" I took out a jar of pills and put it on the table. "I need to find out what it is, and what it can do to someone my age, with my diagnosis." William looked at me in surprise. "The doctor didn't tell you what it is?" "It's a complicated situation," I stammered, not knowing how much to say. But then I decided that a half-truth would be worse than a lie. "I suspect someone is trying to manipulate my health. These pills are being passed off as a cure for heart failure, but I doubt they are." William looked at me for a long time, then at the jar. Then, without saying a word, he took one pill, took a magnifying glass out of his desk drawer, and began to examine it closely. "There are markings here. Very fine," he said after a moment. "But I need to check something. Wait." He left the room and returned with the laptop. He tapped at the keys for a few minutes, frowning harder and harder. "Russell," he finally said in a serious tone, "this is not a cure for heart failure. It's a powerful psychotropic drug. It's used to treat severe psychosis, but in very controlled doses. Side effects include dizziness, weakness, confusion, and coordination problems. With prolonged use, it can cause hallucinations, paranoid states, and," he paused, "permanent liver and kidney damage, especially in elderly patients." I felt a chill go down my spine. So I was right. Hazel didn't just want me out of running the company. She wanted to make me look insane, and maybe something worse. "And another thing," William added, looking at the screen, "this drug has a dangerous interaction with heart failure medications. It can cause severe arrhythmias, even cardiac arrest." Now the whole picture was coming together. If I died of a heart attack, no one would be surprised, with my diagnosis. "Thank you, William," I said, standing up. "You've been a big help." "Russell," he looked at me worriedly, "what's going on? Who gave you those pills?" "I can't explain right now, but I promise I'll tell you everything when the time comes." He nodded, not insisting. That was the way our friendship was. Complete trust, even when not all the cards were open. "Be careful," was all he said in parting. On the way home, I stopped by the bank and checked the status of my accounts. Everything was in order. Then I visited a lawyer to make sure my will hadn't changed. It was still the same, with the bulk of the estate going to Hazel and some to charity. I decided not to change it for the time being so as not to arouse suspicion. When I got home, the first thing I did was check my mail. Among the usual letters, I found a notice from the bank that serviced the company. It said that I had attempted to transfer a large sum of money to an offshore account. The transaction was blocked by the security system as suspicious. I immediately called the bank and asked for details. Half an hour later, a fax machine gave me a printout of the transaction. The transfer was initiated by Hazel 2 days ago. The amount is almost $2 million. The recipient is Alba Consulting, a company registered in the Cayman Islands. I've never heard of that company. We don't do business with offshore firms. What did that mean? Hazel was trying to get the company's money out, but why? Further internet searches were inconclusive. Alba Consulting turned out to be a ghost company with no website and no real activity, a classic shell company for money laundering. The puzzle was getting more and more complicated. I decided to look into Hazel's personal finances. As a father and employer, I had some access to this information, although I had never used it before. What I discovered shocked me. Hazel was mired in debt. a mortgage on a house, loans for her son's education at a prestigious university, several high-interest consumer loans, and most alarming of all, massive gambling debts. Judging by the statements, for the last 3 years she had been regularly playing at online casinos, losing more and more. The total amount she owed was about $1.5 million, almost as much as she was trying to transfer to a shell company. The headache that had plagued me all day intensified. I took my medicine, the real medicine I kept in the safe, and sat back in my chair, trying to comprehend the situation. My daughter didn't just want control of the company. She was desperate. Her debts had her cornered and she was looking for a way out. Selling Brock Industries could bring her quick money, but to do that, she needed to get rid of me, or at least incapacitate me. A phone call interrupted my musings. It was Hazel. "Dad, where have you been today?" I could hear the tension in her voice. "I stopped by your house twice, but you weren't there." "I went out for a walk," I answered as calmly as I could. "Dr. Sheldon said fresh air is good for you. In your condition, it's dangerous to go out alone." There was a hint of irritation in her voice. "You could have fallen, passed out." "I felt well enough," I interrupted her. "By the way, Hazel, I hear you had a meeting with Brock Industries today?" There was a second silence on the other end of the line. "Yes," she finally answered. "The usual supply talks. Nothing special." "I see," I said. "And how's Bradley Brock? Still as pompous as ever?" Another pause, longer than the last. Haven't seen him. The meeting was with their middle managers. That's a lie. I knew for a fact that Bradley was at the last meeting, and was almost certainly present today." "Too bad," I said. "Tell him I said hi if you see him." "Sure," she replied quickly. "Dad, did you take your evening dose of medicine?" "Yes, just now." "That's good. I'll stop by tomorrow morning before work. I'll check on you." I sat for a long time after that conversation, staring out the darkening window. Hazel's plan was becoming clearer and clearer. She was going to declare me incompetent, take control of the company, and sell it to pay off her debts. And the pills she was giving me were going to speed up the process, making me truly insane, or even killing me if I was lucky. I needed proof, not just for myself, but for others. Something I could present to the board of directors, the lawyers, maybe even the police. And then it hit me. Dr. Sheldon. He must have known. He couldn't have known what he was prescribing for me, so he's involved. But how deep? Just turning a blind eye to Hazel's actions or actively involved in the conspiracy? I picked up the phone and dialed the number of his clinic. The answering machine announced the hours of operation. Tomorrow, Dr. Sheldon would be in from 9 in the morning to 5 in the evening. Hazel said she'd stop by in the morning, so I'll have a chance to follow up with her. See if she's meeting with Dr. Sheldon, and if she does, what they'll talk about. The morning was gray and chilly. I woke up early, showered, and dressed in a dark suit. Hazel arrived at 8, as promised. Brought fresh pastries from that French bakery that had recently opened in downtown Castleton. She played the caring daughter to the last detail, even made my tea the way I like it, with lemon and a teaspoon of honey. "How are you feeling today, Father?" she asked, sitting down across from me at the kitchen table. I hunched over more than usual and let the hand holding the cup shake slightly. "A little better than yesterday," I replied, deliberately pausing between words. "But my head is still dizzy, and these dreams, weird dreams. Dreams." Hazel stepped forward, a flicker of interest in her eyes. "What kind of dreams?" "Confusing. I see, people I don't know. They talk to me. Sometimes they scream." I rubbed my forehead, feigning confusion. "I can't remember the details." She nodded, clearly satisfied with what she'd heard. "It must be side effects from the medication. Dr. Sheldon warned me it could happen. Don't worry about it." "Maybe we should call him." I suggested it. "See if it's normal?" "I'll talk to him myself," Hazel answered quickly. "I have a visit scheduled for today, A regular checkup, nothing serious. She didn't even try to hide her lie. Apparently, she was so convinced of my degradation that she didn't think it was necessary to be careful. That's very, nice of you, I mumbled, my eyes downcast. You care for me so much. Of course I do, Father. She put her hand on mine. Her palm was cold. You know I always want the best for you. When she left, ostensibly to go to work, I quickly changed into a more inconspicuous outfit: gray slacks, a navy blue sweater, and a baseball cap. I grabbed my car keys and went out the back door so the neighbors wouldn't notice. I wasn't sure if they were reporting my movements to Hazel, but it was better to be safe. Dr. Sheldon's clinic was about 15 minutes from my house. It was a small one-story building with parking for a dozen cars. I left my car around the corner in a supermarket parking lot and walked to the clinic. As I approached, I immediately noticed Hazel's white BMW at the entrance. So she was already here. It was risky to enter the clinic. I might be recognized. Instead, I walked around the building and found what I was looking for: the ajar window in Dr. Sheldon's office. Spring was in full swing, and many people in Castleton kept their windows open during the day. I ducked down and cautiously approached the window. Voices from the study were clearly audible. I don't understand why it's taking so long, Hazel said. There was impatience in her voice. You said you'd see results sooner. Miss Woodfield, Dr. Sheldon's voice sounded concerned. We're dealing with a very delicate balance. Increasing the dose could have unpredictable consequences. I don't need unintended consequences, Hazel replied sharply. I need my father to be declared incompetent. I don't have much time, doctor. The creditors are breathing down my neck, and this Brock Industries deal can't wait forever. I understand your position, but no, you don't. Hazel's voice was becoming hysterical. If I don't get control of the company in the next 2 weeks, the whole thing will collapse. Everything. Bradley Brock is starting to have doubts. He wants assurances that the deal will go through without my father's interference. Look, the doctor's voice hardened. I've already violated every ethical standard imaginable by writing these prescriptions. If this gets out, I'll lose my license. I could even face criminal charges. You'll be perfectly safe if you do it right. Hazel's voice became softer. Just sign the report that Russell Carnaby is suffering from senile dementia and cannot make adequate decisions, and give him a stronger dose to make his behavior consistent with the diagnosis. Miss Woodfield, I'm asking you to help me relieve an elderly man of stress and responsibility that he can no longer handle, Hazel interrupted. It would be better for everyone. For him, first of all. There was a pause. I pressed myself against the wall of the house, feeling the blood pounding in my temples. My own daughter was discussing how to render me completely incapacitated, how to accelerate my degradation with medication, all for money. Okay, Dr. Sheldon finally said with a heavy sigh. I'll increase the dosage, but if there are any serious side effects, we'll stop immediately. Of course. Hazel's voice was filled with ill-concealed triumph. I don't want anything to happen to him. I just want him out of the business. Here's a new prescription, said the doctor. The dosage has been increased by 30%. Give him 1 tablet morning and evening with meals. And watch out for side effects, drowsiness, confusion, possible hallucinations. And how much? Hazel hesitated, choosing words. How serious can these effects be? At this dose, and considering his age, the doctor spoke slowly as if weighing each word, possible complete disorientation, loss of short-term memory, impaired motor functions. In rare cases, psychotic episodes. Sounds, impressive. Hazel's voice flickered with something akin to doubt, but it quickly disappeared. But these are temporary effects, right? When he stops taking the drug, everything will go back to normal? There was another pause. Not necessarily, Dr. Sheldon finally answered. Long-term use can cause irreversible changes, especially in patients his age. I see, Hazel said simply, and there wasn't an ounce of regret in that short word. I heard the rustle of paper. Apparently Dr. Sheldon was handing her a prescription. When do I expect your report? Hazel asked. Next week. I need to get the paperwork right so it can stand up to a possible audit. That's fine. I'll contact you on Monday. Footsteps were heard, and I quickly moved away from the window, taking cover around the corner of the building. A minute later, Hazel came out of the clinic and got into her car. I waited until she drove away, then slowly wandered back to my car. All the way home, I tried to make sense of what I had heard. Although I had suspected something like this, the reality was even worse. Hazel didn't just want to remove me from running the company. She was ready to destroy my mind, possibly forever. All because of debt and my inability to recognize financial problems. At home, the first thing I did was pull out my secret journal and write down everything I'd heard, word for word, while the memories were fresh. Then I sat down in my chair and began to think through a plan of action. The first thing to do was to secure myself against the new, stronger pills. I knew Hazel would be bringing them over soon and would be watching closely to see if I was taking them. Just throwing them away like before would be risky. She might start checking. I needed a replacement, something similar in appearance but harmless. After a brief thought, I remembered my old friend Nelson Pratt, who owned a small drugstore downtown. Nelson had always been a trustworthy man, and I could trust him with my secret. I called the pharmacy and luckily found Nelson there. "Nelson, I need your help," I said after a brief greeting. "It's confidential." "Anything for you, Russell," he replied. "What's the matter?" "Not over the phone. Can I stop by today?" Sure. I'll be here until 6. Nelson's pharmacy was quiet and cool. He ushered me into a small office behind the counter, closed the door, and listened carefully to my story. I didn't go into all the details, but I told enough for him to understand the seriousness of the situation. "I need vitamins or placebos that look like these pills," I finished, showing him one of the pills Hazel had given me. Nelson took a long look at the pill, then looked up at me. "Russell, this is serious business. What your daughter is doing is a felony." "I know," I nodded, "but right now I need time to gather evidence and protect the company. Can you help?" Nelson sighed, then nodded. "I can. I have some B vitamins that are similar in shape and size. The color is slightly different, but in dim light, or if you just glance around, you can't tell the difference." "That's enough," I said. "Hazel won't look at them too closely if she sees me taking them." "How many do you need?" 50 to start with, then maybe more." Nelson went out and came back a few minutes later with a vial filled with white pills. "Here," he said, holding it out to me. "No side effects, just good for the nervous system." "But Russell," he looked me straight in the eye, "you need to go to the police. What your daughter and that doctor are doing is an assassination attempt." "I know," I said, "but first I need to protect the company and gather hard evidence. Don't worry, I've got it all figured out." Nelson didn't look convinced, but he didn't argue. "Take care of yourself," was all he said. When I got home, I immediately poured the vitamins into the empty medicine jar Hazel had given me. Now I had to find a new lawyer unknown to Hazel to rewrite the will and company documents. I thought of Vance Holloway, a young and ambitious lawyer who had recently moved to Castleton from the big city. We'd met at a fundraiser a couple months ago, and he'd made a good impression on me. Most importantly, he had no connections to Hazel or anyone around her. I found his card in my address book and dialed the number. "Mr. Holloway, this is Russell Carnaby. We met at a Red Cross event. I need your professional help. It's delicate." Holloway agreed to meet with me the next day. We arranged to meet not in his office but in a small cafe on the outskirts of town, where we were unlikely to be recognized. The third point of my plan was to gather evidence of Hazel's machinations in the company. For this, I needed the help of Evan Thornberry and Sybil Prescott, our chief financial analyst. Sybil had been with the company for almost 20 years and knew every figure in our reports. If Hazel was making any questionable transactions, Sybil could spot them. I called Evan and, without going into details over the phone, asked him to arrange a secret meeting with Sybil the day after my meeting with the lawyer. "It concerns, unusual activity in the finance department," I said, hoping Evan would take the hint. "Understood," he replied. "I'll organize everything. Sybil will be at my country house at 3 in the afternoon." In the evening, as I expected, Hazel arrived with the new pills. "Dr. Sheldon adjusted your dosage," she said, handing me a new jar. "These are a little stronger, so they should help better." "Thank you, honey." I took the jar with shaky hands, feigning weakness. "You take such good care of me." "Of course I do, Father." She smiled. "How are you feeling today?" "Strange," I answered, staring at one point. "Sometimes I can't remember what day it is. And the people. I think I see people who aren't here." Hazel's eyes sparkled. "That's normal," she said in a soothing tone. "Dr. Sheldon said it could happen. The new medication should help." "I hope so." I let my gaze cloud over. "Sometimes I get so tired of it all. The company, the responsibility." "Maybe it's time to rest," Hazel suggested gently. "Let me take on more responsibilities." "Maybe," I mumbled. "I'll think about it." She looked pleased. The plan was working. Hazel believed I was slowly giving up. When she left, I replaced all the pills in the new jar with the vitamins Nelson had given me. I now had a defense against her attempts to poison me, but I still had to fake progressive dementia. The next few days were filled with preparation. I met with Vance Holloway and told him the whole story without leaving out details. About the pills, about the overheard conversation, about Hazel's attempts to take over the company and its financial problems. He agreed to help me rewrite the will and prepare documents to change the management structure of the company. I also met with Evan and Sybil, who promised to gather evidence of Hazel's financial machinations. Sybil mentioned strange transfers to the accounts of some company called Alba Consulting, framed as consulting services but with fuzzy details. According to her, these documents were signed by me, although I had never seen them before. Apparently, Hazel had forged my signature. During these days, I continued to feign deteriorating health, talking to blank corners, forgetting people's names, confusing the days of the week. Hazel watched this with ill-concealed satisfaction, not even trying to hide her intentions. One night, when she thought I was asleep, I heard her talking on the phone. "Yes, everything is going according to plan," she said quietly. "Dr. Sheldon is preparing the report. In a week, 2 at the most, we should be able to get temporary custody. No, he barely knows what's going on anymore. Of course I'm in control. Bradley, don't worry, we'll get the deal done on time. Bradley Brock." She was talking to our biggest competitor like a close friend. It confirmed my worst suspicions. She really was going to sell the company to pay off her debts. The next day, I met secretly with Holloway, who prepared a new will. According to it, all my personal assets would go to a charitable foundation, and Hazel would receive only a token amount. As for the company, Holloway devised a scheme to hand over management to a board of directors consisting of Evan, Sybil, and 3 other trusted employees. Hazel was completely excluded from management. "Is this legal?" I asked, looking through the documents. "Absolutely." Holloway nodded. "You are fully capable, as confirmed by the independent medical report I organized. You have every right to dispose of your property and the company as you see fit." I signed all the documents in the presence of a notary, a friend of Evan's, who agreed to keep this fact confidential. Now that my protection was secured, I had to decide exactly how to expose Hazel. After much deliberation, I decided to wait until the very board meeting she planned to use to oust me. There, in front of everyone, I would present evidence of her machinations and intentions. It was a risky plan. Hazel might suspect something was amiss and take action. But I had no choice. I had to protect myself and the company I'd spent a lifetime building. A few days after my meeting with Holloway and rewriting the will, I decided to start the next phase of the plan. It was time to give Hazel a hint that I knew something about her machinations, but at the same time let her think that victory was already in her hands. In the evening, she stopped by to check on me as usual and brought dinner in plastic containers from the restaurant. "I thought you shouldn't cook," she said as she put the food on plates. "Watch out, it's hot." "Thank you." I held out a trembling hand for my fork, feigning weakness. We ate in silence for a few minutes. Then I said, casually, "I saw Bradley Brock yesterday, in town." Hazel froze with her fork halfway to her mouth. "You did?" Her voice sounded strained. Did you talk to him?" "No," I shook my head. "He was passing by in his car, but I recognized him. He still had the same smug face he'd had 30 years ago." "Ah," she relaxed visibly. "Yes, he comes to Castleton sometimes. He seems to have some business interests here." "I bet he does," I muttered, looking down at my plate. "Probably trying to lure our clients again. He's always been like that." Hazel hummed indefinitely and turned the conversation to another topic. After a while, I decided to cast another line. "You know," I said thoughtfully, "I keep thinking about what you said, about giving me a break from doing things." Her eyes instantly lit up with interest. "Really?" She tried to speak casually, but I noticed the way she moved forward. "What are you thinking?" "Maybe you're right," I sighed. "I'm tired. 78 years is a long time. Maybe it's time to hand over the reins to someone younger." "That's a very wise decision, Father." Hazel put her hand on mine. "You've given so many years to the company. It's time to think about yourself." "Yes," I let my gaze cloud over. "But how do you do it? Legally, I mean. You'd have to make some kind of official decision, wouldn't you?" "Don't worry about that," she said quickly. "I'll organize everything. We already have a board meeting scheduled for next week, remember? We can formalize it then." "A meeting?" I faked confusion. "Oh yes, of course. The meeting. I remember." "All you have to do is attend and sign a few documents," Hazel continued, clearly encouraged by my pliability. "I'll take care of the rest." "You've always been so organized," I remarked with a slight smile. "Just like your mother." The mention of Eleanor threw Hazel off balance for a moment. She rarely spoke of her mother after her death. "Yes," she said after a pause. "Mom always knew how to plan." "She would have been proud of you," I said, watching my daughter's reaction carefully. "Seeing how much you cared about the company. And me." Something akin to guilt flashed across Hazel's face, but she quickly pulled herself together. "I'm doing what I have to do," she said, taking her hand away. "What's right for everyone." After dinner, when Hazel left, I called Evan to let him know it was time to move on to the next phase of the plan. "She thinks I'm giving up," I said, "and she plans to formalize everything at the board meeting. We need to be ready." "We will be," Evan said confidently. "Sybil has almost finished her analysis. The results are impressive." "How bad?" "Worse than we thought. She wasn't just moving money out through shell companies. She's been falsifying financial statements for the last 2 years to cover it up. If it wasn't for Sybil's expertise, we'd never have noticed." "What about Brock Industries?" "My source confirms that the deal is almost done. Hazel has agreed to sell 75% of the shares. She wanted to keep the other 25, with a guaranteed position in the new entity." I shook my head, though Evan couldn't see it. "Thanks, Evan. Make sure you have all the paperwork ready for the meeting. Be careful. Hazel mustn't suspect anything." "Don't worry, Mr. Carnaby. We'll get it right." Over the next few days, I watched Hazel become more active. She began to call more often, inquiring about my well-being, asking if I needed help with any documents. One day she even brought her son Benjamin, my grandson, whom I hadn't seen in over a year. Benjamin was a tall, skinny guy in his 20s with dark hair and a wary eye. He was attending a prestigious university on the other side of the country and had apparently been called home specifically for this visit. "Grandpa," he said, hugging me awkwardly, "you look good." It was a blatant lie. I hadn't shaved in days, and I wore the shabbiest of home clothes to support the image of a slowly losing old man. "Benjamin," I faked confusion. "How you've, grown. When did you get so tall?" Hazel and Benjamin exchanged glances. "Grandpa, I'm 20 years old," Benjamin said softly. "I stopped growing a long time ago." Sure, I patted him on the shoulder. Sometimes I get confused about time. It seems like just yesterday you were so small." We spent about an hour together. Benjamin talked about his studies and I pretended to struggle to follow the conversation. Hazel watched us carefully, occasionally intervening when she thought I was getting too confused. As they were leaving, I overheard their conversation on the porch. "You were right, Mom," Benjamin said quietly. "He's not good at all." "Yes," Hazel answered with feigned sadness. "It's getting more and more noticeable. The doctors say it's progressive dementia. Soon he'll need constant care." "But who will—" "Don't worry about that," Hazel interrupted him. "I'll arrange everything. The main thing is that now you have seen his condition with your own eyes. If necessary, you can confirm it." "Confirm it? To who?" "Never mind," Hazel said quickly. "Just in case." They left, and I stood by the door thinking about what I'd heard. Hazel had prepared every possible safety net for her plan, even involving Benjamin as a potential witness to my incapacity. The next day, I met Sybil Prescott at a small cafe on the outskirts of town. We chose a place where we were unlikely to be recognized and took a table in the far corner. Sybil came in with a folder of papers and looked more serious than usual. "Mr. Carnaby," she said after a brief greeting, "what I have discovered is more serious than we thought." She opened a folder and spread some printouts in front of us. Hazel wasn't just withdrawing money through Alba Consulting. That's just the tip of the iceberg. Over the last 3 years, she created a network of shell companies through which she funneled funds. The total amount she's taken out of Carnaby Industrial Systems is about $4 million. I felt my heart clench. $4 million. That was almost 15% of the company's annual turnover. How could she hide it for so long? I asked. "She was very good at falsifying documents," Sybil pointed to one of the printouts. "Here, look at this. This is the official report you supposedly signed last year, and these are the real figures I reconstructed by analyzing the original documentation." The difference between the numbers was enormous. The official report made the company look stable but not particularly profitable. The real numbers showed that we should have made a much bigger profit. "She forged my signature?" "Yes, and very skillfully," Sybil nodded. "I consulted an expert graphologist without going into detail. He confirmed that it was a high-quality forgery. Without special analysis, it's hard to tell the difference." "What about the deal with Brock Industries?" Sybil frowned. "That's the most interesting one. Hazel is playing a double game. She's negotiating with Brock Industries and Global Tech at the same time, and the terms of the sale are vastly different." She showed me another document. "Brock is offering $50 million for a 75% stake. Global Tech is offering $65 million for 100%. Hazel is leaning toward Brock's offer, even though it's obviously less favorable to the company." "Because it's better for her," I muttered. "She gets to keep her 25% stake and her position in the new structure." "Exactly," Sybil nodded. "Plus, according to these documents," she pointed to another printout, "Brock promised her a personal bonus of $2 million for helping to close the deal, which, by the way, is a direct breach of fiduciary duty." I leaned back in my chair, trying to make sense of what I'd heard. The extent of Hazel's betrayal was greater than I'd realized. She wasn't just trying to remove me from management. She was planning to sell the company for her own profit without regard for the interests of the other shareholders and employees. "Could you prepare a full report for the board meeting?" I asked Sybil. "I'm on it," she nodded. "It will be ready the day before the meeting. I'll make copies for each board member." "Good. And Sybil, thank you. I know it's not the most pleasant job." She gave me a serious look. "Mr. Carnaby, I've been with this company for 20 years. You've always been honest with me and with all the employees. What Hazel is doing is a betrayal not only of you, but of all of us. I'm glad I can help stop it." After my meeting with Sybil, I called Holloway to make sure that the legal side of our plan was also ready. "All the paperwork has been prepared," the lawyer assured me. "The new will is officially registered. The changes in the company's management structure are also ready to be signed. All we have to do is present them at the board meeting." "What about the evidence of Hazel's fraud?" I asked. "Is it legally binding?" "Absolutely," Holloway answered confidently. "Falsifying financial statements, forging signatures, and withdrawing company funds are all serious offenses that fall under both civil and criminal law. Plus, breach of fiduciary duty in negotiating the sale of the company. Hazel faces not only termination and a civil suit, but also potential criminal prosecution." "I'm not sure I want to take this to criminal court," I said thoughtfully. "After all, she is my daughter." "That's your decision, Mr. Carnaby," Holloway said diplomatically. "But keep in mind that some of the identified violations may require mandatory law enforcement notification." After talking to Holloway, I called Evan again to clarify the details of the upcoming meeting. "Everything is ready," he said. "The meeting is scheduled for 10 o'clock Friday morning. All the board members have confirmed their attendance." "And Hazel?" "She's been personally calling everyone, insisting on the importance of the meeting. Said it would make critical decisions about the future of the company." "She doesn't suspect?" "Not that I can tell. She seems, enthusiastic, confident of success." "Good," I said. "Let's keep it that way until the meeting. Did you set up the conference room like we discussed?" "Yes," Evan confirmed. "The presentation equipment is ready. Sybil will give me the files the day before the meeting and I'll upload and check everything." "Great. And don't forget the special chair for me." "Already ordered. It'll be delivered the morning of the meeting." I chuckled. Evan and I had decided to add a dramatic element to my revenge plan. I was to show up at the meeting in a wheelchair, living up to the image of the infirm old man Hazel thought I was. And then, at the climax, stand up and produce evidence of her machinations. A little theatrical, perhaps, but I felt I deserved that moment of drama after all I'd been through. The day before the meeting, Hazel stopped by my house, ostensibly to discuss the final details. "It's very simple, Father," she said, laying out some papers in front of us. "Tomorrow at the meeting you will announce your decision to step down from the company for health reasons. The board of directors will vote to appoint me acting president. You will sign these documents," she pointed to a stack of papers, "and everything will be legally finalized." "And then what?" I asked, looking at the papers with a deliberately absent-minded look. "Then you can focus on your health," she smiled. "No stress, no worrying about the company. I'll take care of everything." "That's very nice of you," I murmured. "You've always been such a caring daughter." Something flickered in her eyes, guilt, annoyance. But it quickly faded. "Of course, Father. I always wanted the best for you." "And for the company too, I'm sure," I added. "Of course," she agreed quickly. "Carnaby Industrial Systems is our family legacy. I'll do everything I can to preserve and enhance it." The lie came so easily and naturally from her lips that, if I didn't know the truth, I might have believed it. Hazel had always been a good actress, but now she was playing her last part without knowing it. "I'm sure you'll do fine," I said with a slight smile. "You've always had a talent for management." "Thank you, Father." She looked almost touched. "It means a lot to me." When she left, I called Holloway to confirm the final details of our plan. "I'll be at the company office an hour before the meeting," the lawyer said. "Evan and Sybil and I will set up. Do you want me to bring you, or can you drive yourself?" "I'll drive myself," I said. "I don't want to risk calling the company car. Hazel might notice." "I see. Then I'll see you tomorrow, Mr. Carnaby." Good luck to us all." The board meeting started at precisely 10 o'clock in the morning. I sat in my wheelchair, hunched over and trembling slightly, while Hazel opened the meeting with a speech full of fake concern and worry about my health. "As you can all see," she said, standing at the head of the table, "my father's condition has deteriorated considerably in recent months, according to the medical report I have received from Dr. Sheldon." She paused to pull a fake diagnosis document from a folder. At that moment, I raised my hand, stopping her. "Before you go on, Hazel," I said, loud and clear in a voice that had no trace of senility, "I'd like to make something clear." There was a whisper of surprise in the room. Hazel froze with the sheet in her hand, a look of confusion on her face. "Father, we can discuss your questions later," she said quickly. "Right now, it is important. What's important now is that everyone here knows the truth." I straightened in my chair and looked around at the board members. "The truth about what's been going on in our company for the last 3 years, and what my daughter was trying to do to me." Hazel's face turned pale. She cast a quick glance at the conference room doors, as if figuring out the possibility of a quick retreat. "I don't know what you mean," she began. But I interrupted her again. "Gentlemen," I addressed the board of directors, "I've been faking a decline in my health and mental state for the past few months. I did it deliberately, to give my daughter the opportunity to fully disclose my plans." I pushed back the wheels of my chair and stood up, causing a new wave of whispers among those present. "As you can see, I am in perfect health. Now let me tell you what really happened." I signaled Evan, and he turned on the projector. The first page of Sybil's presentation appeared on the big screen, a graph showing the discrepancy between the company's official financial statements and the actual figures. "For the last 3 years, my daughter, Hazel Woodfield, who was the CFO, has been systematically withdrawing company funds through a network of front companies," I pointed to the graph. "The total amount of funds withdrawn is nearly $4 million. Hazel seemed petrified. She stood motionless, her face white as chalk, staring at the screen. "There must be some mistake," she finally said. "These numbers, they're wrong." "Sybil," I turned to our financial analyst who was sitting in the corner of the room, "please explain to the board how you got these figures." Sybil got up and walked over to the screen. For the next 10 minutes, she methodically and in detail explained how she had identified the falsifications in the statements, how she had traced the movement of funds through shell companies, how she had discovered forgeries of my signature on key documents. As she went on, the faces of the board members grew increasingly grim. Some cast openly hostile glances at Hazel. "That's not all," I said when Sybil had finished. "Hazel was also secretly negotiating the sale of the company to our competitors, and the terms of the deal favored her personally, not the company or its shareholders." Documents confirming negotiations with Brock Industries and Global Tech appeared on the screen. As you can see, she chose Brock's less favorable offer to the company because it included a $2 million personal bonus for her and a guaranteed position in the new structure. Hazel finally came out of her daze. "That's not true," she exclaimed. "I was in preliminary talks with various potential partners. It's normal practice." "Partners?" I raised an eyebrow. "Or buyers? Because these documents are all about the sale, Hazel. The sale of the company I've spent 43 years building." I paused, letting those words hang in the air. "But even that's not the worst part," I continued in a low voice. "The worst part is what you tried to do to me personally." I nodded to Evan and he changed the slide. An enlarged picture of a white pill labeled, "This isn't heart failure medicine," I said, looking directly at Hazel. "It's the powerful psychotropic drug you've been giving me for the past few months, passing it off as my regular medication. A drug that causes confusion, disorientation, hallucinations, and can cause permanent brain damage in elderly patients." There was dead silence in the room. The board members looked at Hazel with outright horror. This isn't," she stammered, looking around for support but finding none. "Fortunately, I suspected something wrong early enough," I continued. "I started secretly throwing away the pills instead of taking them, and later replaced them with harmless vitamins." I turned to the conference room door and nodded. The door opened, and two people came in, Vance Holloway with a folder of documents and, to Hazel's obvious surprise, Dr. Austin Sheldon. "Dr. Sheldon," I turned to him, "could you tell the board members about your conversation with my daughter on April 23rd of this year? The conversation that I overheard from under your office window?" Dr. Sheldon looked pale and nervous. He cast a guilty glance at Hazel before he spoke. "Miss Woodfield came to me with a request to increase the dosage of a drug I was prescribing at her insistence for Mr. Carnaby," he said in a shaky voice. She wanted her father to look incapacitated. She said she needed it to finalize some important deal." "And this drug wasn't heart failure medicine, was it?" I asked. "No," Dr. Sheldon lowered his head. "It was a powerful psychotropic drug. I knew I shouldn't have prescribed it. I had violated medical ethics and probably the law. But Miss Woodfield was very persistent and You gave in to pressure," I finished for him. "Like so many before you." I turned to Hazel, who now looked utterly crushed. "You wanted to incapacitate me, Hazel. You wanted me to forget who I was, to lose control of my mind. All for money." "No," she shook her head, tears welling up in her eyes. "Not just for the money. You never understood. You never really saw me. It was always just company, company, company. And I was just a shadow. First a shadow of the great Russell Carnaby, then a shadow of the perfect Eleanor. Always not good enough, always in the background." Her voice shook with emotion. "I deserved more. I deserved recognition, respect. And you were never going to give me control. Never." "You're right," I said calmly. "I wasn't going to give you control. Not because I didn't believe in you, but because I saw your greed, your irresponsibility. And time has shown me I was right." I turned to the board of directors. "Gentlemen, in light of all of the above, I have made a few decisions that I want to announce today." I nodded to Holloway, and he began handing out folders of documents to the board members. "First, I am relieving Hazel Woodfield of her position as Chief Financial Officer of Carnaby Industrial Systems effective immediately. All of her powers are revoked from this point forward." Hazel opened her mouth to object, but I gestured for her to stop. "Secondly, I'm appointing Evan Thornberry as the new president of the company. I'm retaining my position as chairman of the board, but I'm transferring full operational responsibility to Evan." Evan looked surprised, even though we'd discussed this beforehand. Apparently, he didn't believe until the last minute that I would really trust him with the company. "Third, I made changes to the company's articles of incorporation and my personal will. These changes disqualify Hazel Woodfield from ever holding any executive position in Carnaby Industrial Systems or its subsidiaries. Her shareholding goes into a special trust administered by independent trustees with the proviso that she will receive a minimum dividend but will not be able to sell the shares or use them to vote." I paused to let everyone comprehend these words. "Finally, I'm announcing my decision to step back partially and devote my time to vacation and travel. Starting next week, I'm going to the island of St. Lucia in the Caribbean, a place Eleanor and I had always dreamed of going to, but never got around to in her lifetime." Hazel's face contorted with anger and despair. "You can't do this to me," she exclaimed. "I am your daughter. I am your blood." "Yes, you are my daughter," I said quietly, And that's why I'm not pressing criminal charges against you, even though I have every right to do so. That's why you'll receive minimal maintenance and not be left with no means of subsistence at all. But I can't trust you anymore, Hazel. Not ever. I looked at the board of directors. I move that we vote in favor of the proposed changes. All the necessary documents are in front of you. The vote was unanimous. None of the board members sided with Hazel. Even those she had considered her supporters now avoided looking her in the eye. When the formalities were over, I walked over to Evan and shook his hand. "Congratulations, Mr. President. Take care of the company." "I promise, Mr. Carnaby," he said firmly. "I won't let you down." Then I turned to Hazel, who stood with her shoulders slumped and a lost expression on her face. "You'll be escorted to the exit," I said. "Your pass and all your corporate accessories need to be turned in at the front desk. Personal items from the office will be packed up and delivered to your home." "You're going to regret this," she hissed. "You're going to regret it." "Maybe," I shrugged, "but I doubt it." The company guard appeared in the doorway, ready to escort Hazel to the exit. She gave me one last furious glance, then turned and walked out of the room without another word. The meeting was over. I shook hands with all the board members, thanked Sybil for her work, and nodded to Dr. Sheldon, who looked like he wanted to fall through the ground. "Doctor," I said quietly, "I won't press charges against you, but I would advise you to think seriously about your professional standards." He nodded without looking up. "Thank you, Mr. Carnaby. I'm sorry." "So am I," I replied. "I'm sorry, too." After the meeting, I was alone with Holloway to discuss the final details of my departure. "Everything is ready," he said. "The villa on St. Lucia has been rented for 6 months, with an option to extend. All the necessary paperwork for an extended stay is in place. Financial matters are settled. Your personal accounts have been transferred to an international bank with access from anywhere in the world." "Excellent," I nodded. "Thank you for everything, Vance. You turned out to be exactly the person I needed." "Just doing my job," he replied modestly. If I may make a personal comment, Mr. Carnaby, I admire your fortitude. Not everyone could go through something like that and keep their dignity." I smiled. "When you get to my age, Vance, you'll realize that dignity is often all we have left." 3 days after the dramatic meeting, I was already aboard a plane bound for the Caribbean. I spent my last days in Castleton sorting out my remaining business and saying goodbye to close friends. Hazel made no attempt to contact me, and I was glad of that. Our breakup was final, and any further conversations would only cause more pain for both of us. Evan confidently took over the running of the company. Sybil had been promoted to CFO. I knew I was leaving Carnaby Industrial Systems in good hands. The villa on St. Lucia was exactly as I had dreamed. A spacious house with a terrace overlooking the ocean. White sand, palm trees, turquoise water stretching to the horizon. Eleanor would love it here. The first night I'd sat on the terrace, watching the sunset and sipping a rum and coke, a drink that had always seemed too frivolous for a serious businessman. But now, I was no longer that serious businessman. Now I was just an older man enjoying a well-deserved vacation. The sun was slowly sinking into the ocean, coloring the sky in shades of orange and pink. A light breeze rustled the leaves of the palm trees. In the distance, I could see the silhouettes of fishing boats returning to the harbor. I thought about Hazel, about how things had turned out between us. Of course, there was some of my fault that our relationship had broken down. Perhaps I really hadn't paid enough attention to her, too focused on the company. Perhaps I had become too withdrawn after Eleanor's death, not giving my daughter a chance to really bond with me. But whatever my mistakes, they didn't justify what she was trying to do, didn't excuse the betrayal, the deception, the attempt to destroy my mind for money. I took a sip of rum and allowed myself to let those thoughts go. The past was in the past. Here, on the shores of the Caribbean, a new chapter of my life was beginning, a chapter in which there was no room for bitterness and regret. The ocean breeze carried the smells of salt, flowers, and spices from the nearest restaurants. Somewhere in the distance, music was playing, a light, carefree melody filled with the joy of life. I leaned back in my chair and took a deep breath. For the first time in a long time, I felt truly free, free of obligations, free of worries, free of the burden of responsibility I had carried all my life. Cairnby Industrial Systems would go on without me. Maybe it would even get better under Evan, who would bring fresh ideas and energy, and I could finally afford to live for myself, to do the things I'd always wanted to do but had put off. The sun finally disappeared over the horizon, and the sky began to darken, studded with the first stars. I finished my drink and smiled. Life didn't end with betraying my daughter or walking away from my business. In fact, it was just beginning for me, and I was ready to embrace whatever she had in store for me in this new chapter.